The last remaining British resident at Guantanamo Bay says he fears he will die there as a result of what he calls systematic torture. 47-year-old Shakarama has been at Guantanamo Bay for more than 11 years now without trial or charge. Well, let's now speak to his lawyer, Clive Stafford-Smith, who's also the director of legal action charity Reprieve. Thank you very much for joining us. When was the last time you spoke to Shakarama?
I spoke to Shaka last week on the telephone. I was trying to get I got a message from one of my clients that, one of my other clients that he desperately needs to talk again, but they're not letting me have another one till next week.
What did he say to you in the last conversation?
Well, I mean, it's hard. We went on for an hour, and it was basically mainly about the hunger strike. But I think he was more down. He had lost a lot more weight in the days between that call and the one I'd had before. And he was really concerned that he was fading.
It's been more than 2 months now that hunger strike's been ongoing. How's his health? His
health was terrible before he started the hunger strike. And so, you know, what do you think when you stop eating for 2 months? And he's being horribly abused. I mean, the US, unfortunately, is taking a very vindictive attitude. The colonel in charge of the camp seems to have an absurd position on how you treat people. The colonel said to one of my other clients, we know how to deal with you because I've got children myself. And Shaka's response, which I thought was quite humorous, was if he's treating his children like he treats us, we need to send the social services around there to straighten him out.
When prisoners talk about abuse, have you yourself seen evidence of that?
Well, Shaka's going through what they now call FCE, which is forcible cell extraction. It's a euphemism that's gone through many transitions over the last several years. They used to call it ERF, the Emergency Reaction Force, which Shaka called the Extreme Repression Force. And what that is when a prisoner doesn't do exactly what they're told, these 6 goons dressed up, you know, as if they're in Darth Vader outfits, come in and basically beat him up to make him do it. They pin him to the floor, and Shaka describes how there's one guy who's 300 pounds who sits on him and sometimes knees him in the stomach. And I've seen the bruises on him from this process. This is happening to him all the time right now because they have a process where anything he asks for, they won't just give it to him, they send the FCE team in. So if he wants a bottle of water, they send the goons in. If he wants his medicine, they send the goons in. And what he told me last I talked to him was he's just not asking for his medication anymore because he doesn't want to get beaten up to get it.
For viewers who've never been to Guantanamo Bay, have seen very little information about what goes on inside there, what is it actually like inside the detention camp? You've seen the bruises. What's the atmosphere in that place?
Well, I've spent my whole life representing people on death row, so I've been to most of the death rows of the southern states of America. Guantanamo, for all the nonsense that the military puts out about it, is worse than any death row I've ever been to, on 2 different levels. First, you've got the physical treatment of the prisoners. There's no prison in the United States where you could beat a prisoner up and not get sued into the next millennium. So it's worse because no one controls the military. But on another level, it's far worse, and that's psychologically. The military got upset at us way back when we called it the Guantanamo Gulag, because they didn't like the echoes of the Soviet Union in the old days. So to take that analogy a bit further, which I think is totally fair, I don't think there was a gulag in Soviet Russia where 52% of the prisoners had been told that they were cleared for release, but they couldn't go. I mean, it's that sort of torture that's worse than anything you hear in other places. So 86 out of 166 prisoners have been told they're cleared, but they can't go. Shaka was told he was cleared in 2007 by Bush, 2009 by Obama. He's still there. And there is no legitimate reason why he can't come back to London tomorrow.
When we talk about him being cleared for release, I understand there's new information that's come to light recently and that the Foreign Secretary, William Hague, wrote to you. Can you tell us what he said?
Well, the new information that just came to light is new disinformation, which is William Hague, the British Foreign Secretary, wrote to me saying that he'd been told by the Americans that Shaka is only cleared to go to Saudi Arabia, not to Britain. Well, that's total drivel. There's no other prisoner that I know of out of 166 people in Guantanamo who's only been cleared to go to one place. Shaka's never been told he's only cleared to go to one place. He's been given 2 notices, neither of which say that. Now, there's a reason for it, and the reason is they want to gag him. And the people who want to gag him is not just the United States. The US wants him to go to Saudi Arabia on the premise that the Saudis will keep him banged up forever. He won't be able to talk to the media. He won't talk to anyone. So certainly the US would like to keep Shaka quiet because of everything he's seen and everything that's happened to him. But I'm very much afraid that it's also the British intelligence services who want to keep him quiet, because they know that Shaka is a witness against them. Going back to Bagram Air Force Base in January 2002, Shaka was there. The British saw him and were legally complicit in his torture there. But also, Shaka saw Ibn Sheikh al-Libi being tortured, and this is the most embarrassing example of torture that America's had. So the last thing that either the British or Americans want to come out of Guantanamo Bay is Shaka Rama, who can shed some light on the torture that led to that catastrophic mistake.
What is it that Shaka Rama knows that other detainees don't?
I know exactly what he knows because he's told me. He was in Bagram. He was one of the first 5 prisoners held by the Americans in Bagram, and he was taken there just before New Year 2001. And al-Libi had just been taken, and the Americans at the time thought he was a big-time al-Qaeda person, which he wasn't. He was never a member of al-Qaeda. So the Americans were abusing him to try to get him to make statements. Shaka was taken from the cage where he was being held in Bagram into the room where al-Libi was being abused. He saw the people who were there. He can identify some of those people. The British were present in Bagram at that time, and he can tell you a whole lot about what was going on in terms of the abuse of al-Libi. Now, al-Libi can't speak for himself because he was sent back to Libya where he, according to the Libyans, Gaddafi, died, or according to other people, was murdered. So one extraordinarily embarrassing witness has disappeared, and Shaka is one of the few people who remain.
I'd just like to read you a bit of Shaka Rama's own testimony that he wrote recently. These are dark hours in a dark, dark pit, yet I can see the light. Well over 100 prisoners are striking in solidarity. We're not going to take it anymore. And he'd earlier said that the riots recently began with the Quran being disrespected, but it was now much more than that. There have been hunger strikes before. Do you feel this time is different?
This time is different for 2 reasons. One is that there's many, many more people on hunger strike. And the thing that gives Shaka hope is he feels that there is solidarity among the prisoners that he hasn't seen for a long time in that prison. But you know, there's another reason it's very different, and that's that the Americans' response is just barbaric. And that's not having the desired effect. The colonel in charge thinks that he can beat people into submission. But these are guys who have suffered for 11 years, and there is nothing this colonel can throw at them that they haven't seen before. So they're just not going to put up